Good afternoon, Facebook and Instagram.
Hello!
And YouTube.
Everybody, high energy start. We're starting
energy.
now.
We've just finished 2 weeks of prayer and fasting, and this is
As much energy as we got left over.
Yeah.
Okay.
We are not running on
everybody.
empty anymore. We are running on plenty.
Hey, good.
Wow.
Keep flying, man. Keep going, keep going.
I hope we recorded that.
Yeah, on a roll. Go.
Welcome to episode 8 of Live Lunch with me, Yohaan Philip, and Joel Virgo, who leads Emmanuel Church in Brighton. The lovely Megan Landers... No. The lovely Megan Lara May...
Nicholas.
The lovely Megan Lara May Nicholas.
Yeah. Got there in the end.
Is here with us directing in the director's seat again.
Yes.
Which you were here last week as well, weren't you?
She was here, yeah.
And you've got an interesting drink with you.
It's
Just green tea.
Green tea.
Yeah, but I couldn't find.
Do you not like green tea?
No.
So it's similar.
No, I don't.
Okay, everybody, if you like Chinese food, what do you have to drink with it? You have green tea. Try it now, thank me later.
Yes, it's true.
Do not try anything else. Definitely don't do wine with Chinese food. And don't do... Oh, you could try beer, but really, green tea.
And never do instant coffee.
Oh, don't do that anyway. Unless... Yeah. I don't know if such a thing existed anymore. Welcome.
Oh,
Hey, guys.
lunch is here.
Oh, this
We
is
don't
good.
actually have Chinese food today, though.
We don't... Okay. But
Wow.
we don't have green tea either. We have this stuff. Okay, which I'm very grateful for. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the...
Thank you, Josh
Elves from
and
KFC.
Jono. Good men. Wowzers. Come on. All that chicken. That could be a whole chicken or several. I shouldn't really say that, should I? It's kind of dark. A whole family of chickens. Whole
Slaughtered.
farmyard full of chickens. Excellent. Welcome,
Oh,
guys. Megan,
thanks,
tuck
guys.
in. Here you go.
There
Have
is
some sachets of salt and
Plenty
pepper.
of
There you go.
chicken.
Yeah, don't say I don't
We
look after you.
yeah, I mean, this is probably where our office is based. We don't have a lot of choice on restaurants.
It's
But
okay. You can
we've
do
got
both.
KFC.
It's definitely going to get some calories in us.
Yeah, and some sugar.
Megan, would you like some fries?
Here we are, not being very
Please go for it.
Brighton, drinking Pepsi and eating KFC.
I'm actually not going to have any Pepsi. Have we got any coffee coming, right? Because
We might have some coffee coming.
well, I'll wait. I'll wait. Thank you very much. Thank you, and welcome everybody to Live Lunch. It's good to see you, and to eat in front of you.
All right, intern's allowed to have any chicken.
Oh yeah, guys, tuck in. There's way too much chicken.
There is way too much chicken. Chicken? We love some chicken, don't we?
Good.
For me, the hot wings are my favorite.
This is not a vegan week.
No.
Definitely food for me. Yep.
I feel like we should start talking because I don't think people want to watch
We should
me
talk.
us eat chicken.
Hi everybody.
So, last Sunday we looked at Thrive Power. Power! Which involved more than you just shouting out power 3 times. What do you want to-
Amazing, because
do
actually
you-
the power of what you just did.
It was so powerful. Do you want to summarize what you... What
Okay,
you
I'm
spoke
going to
about?
have to put the food down. Yeah. We talked about the stewarding of power, using power. What's the ability that God has given each of us for, and yeah, I mean that's a big question, big subject, and it wasn't. I mean, we're talking about the skills, gifts, strengths, abilities, talents, and actually looked at the what's called the parable of the talents in Matthew 25, where Jesus talks about these three servants whose master gave them some money. Yeah, it's a currency unit, but we use the word talents, but it can be transferred to talking about literally talents. How do we use the things God's given us fruitfully? So that's what we looked at.
Do you
What's
think the
it
word
for?
talents came from? Talents are currency.
I don't know. I should have found that out,
Is
shouldn't I?
it just coincidence?
It seems a strange coincidence that it's yeah, but yeah, it's literally a unit of currency that would have been worth about 20 years' salary, average
20
salary.
years. Wow.
Yeah, so to be given,
It is the root of talent.
it is. Wow.
Old English from Latin.
Oh my word,
Hey!
my wife.
That was the old one.
Oh man, hello.
It's got to be you.
Is that the old one?
Is that?
Thanks,
So is that
Virgo.
oat milk? Is it?
Hello. There you go.
Hello. Thank you very much.
All right, nice to see you.
Yeah.
It was such a
Welcome.
It was such a tender moment.
I'll leave you to it on that note.
Would you like some? Would you like some chicken?
I I'm all right. Thanks so much, though. Enjoy.
See you
We
soon.
will.
See you soon.
Thanks,
Excellent.
Kate.
There you go.
She's still working for me.
I would love you to come enjoy this.
Mm.
Yeah, of course.
Coming down.
See the lads.
Dan Nightingale also got engaged recently.
I did, yeah.
Getting married. Getting married this year. Lots of people seem to be getting engaged around us. Wonderful.
So yeah, that's the root of the word talent. Thank
Yeah.
you, Simon, our researcher.
Yeah, from the Greek translation, unit of money.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Now it's made its way into our English.
Talents being equated with money, that's a very fascinating thought.
There you go.
Anyway, you spoke about people being given gifts and abilities and talents by God, being blessed with, I guess, being able to do stuff in an incredible way, in a way which other people can't. What are some of your talents? So I just thought, do you have? What would you say are some of your talents?
I'm an astonishing player on the spoons.
Right.
It's one of those
Maybe
things.
you could you
only the
demonstrate
people
next
that
week or something.
I think that the backstreet clubs of Guadalajara, everyone would agree. Yeah, it's where I spend most of my summers, just cruising those places. Just in the, it's a little known thing, but I've blown my cover now. But yeah,
There you go. So
I
guess
just play with all the salsa bands, and sometimes we go as far north as New Orleans, and we take in all that kind of that world. Yeah, me on the spoons.
Should we have a demonstration?
I play with the best.
Next week.
I have.
Yeah.
Should we get some spoons now?
Ooh. No, I think we don't have time. We're busy eating chicken.
I wouldn't
so
want
let's do it
to
right now.
show. Could get distracted from the theology.
I guess one of the big questions that that comes to mind is it unfair that people were born with certain gifts and certain talents, and is there a form of inequality? The thing that came to mind was I watched the film Lincoln, 2012 film, 2013 film, which is a brilliant film. And there's this
Film about Abraham Lincoln.
About Abraham Lincoln,
Yeah,
obviously.
not about Lincoln Park. No.
Different spelling.
Yeah.
Same pronunciation?
Finger Lincoln.
Yeah.
Kentucky Fried Lincoln.
So on it.
Go on.
And a character played by Tommy Lee Jones, Thaddeus Stevens. The tension that Abraham Lincoln and the American Senate faced with
Emancipating.
Thaddeus Stevens was very much the whole slavery conversation. Whether he viewed men as being born equally or not, because they had this all men should be born. We've got to acknowledge that all men were born equal. And he argues, he says, in this climatic scene, where he says, I don't hold that all men are born equal. I can't hold that all men are born equal because I look at you stinking moral caucus, or caucus of you from Ohio. Not you, but the person that he points at.
You've memorised this speech.
Clearly.
You've obviously taken time.
I
to think,
have.
how can
I'll be just waiting to heckle you and shout out you.
that's right. Bank that away, that insult. That could come in handy.
In light of encountering and relationship with people, not men are born equal.
Yeah.
But before the law, all men should be held equal. So that's the equality that he talks about. It's not so much the equality with ability, but it's the equality before law, and all men and women should be treated justly. From that sense. You touched a lot about equality as well. Do you want to unpack a little bit of the equality that you were talking about?
So I guess the point that I think we have to make is that there's equality in modern Western societies, especially, and I guess globally, with things like the United Nations kind of pushing the theme of universal human rights, and that's been a kind of growing, prevailing assumption in the last few generations of world history, that people are endowed with human rights that, in the words of the American Constitution, just as one example, are self-evident. Everybody's equal because they are. And sometimes I've even gone into conversations with people who've pushed the theme of equality as a given. It's obviously a given that everybody is equal, and just to kind of test their thinking and to help them to reflect perhaps a little and see if if I can provoke some reflection, have sometimes said, why do you believe that? Why do you believe that all people are equal? And these will sometimes be people who have no Christian conviction, not even any belief in God sometimes. So we don't believe in God, but we believe that all people are equal. If you don't believe in God, it's actually quite difficult to find a basis for preaching the equality of all humankind as though it was a given. Why would you believe that at all? There's no basis for believing it, and yet we kind of parrot it as if it's like, well, you can't question it. Thou shalt not question the equality of all humanity. But surely we should, if we're trying to boast of being reasonable, rational people, which very often skeptics or even atheists will boast, will claim. But there's ultimately no good reason to propound the equality, the equality of in essence of all humanity, unless actually God himself has given that dignity. If it's a gift, if it's something that all people have by virtue of it being given, perhaps by virtue of being made in the image of God, which is the Bible's claim, or even as the Bible goes further, that God himself became human, became not just human, became a weak baby, a little child in a manger, in a marginalized society, growing up amongst peasants. This helps us to be very careful before we despise any kind of human being. We start realizing, no, God's put his own identity. He's somehow invested within human identity his own identity in a way that's mysterious but powerful. It's meaningful. It says that no, humanity is hugely important to God. It's a big deal. Yeah. And it means a lot of things become, in the biblical view of the world, completely taboo. It's like you can't be, we're eating chicken, right? That's why certain things like cannibalism or even just racism, all the kinds of different abuses that show cruelty, any way that we kind of disparage somebody or harm someone without warrant. It's not just a question of this is a naughty or nasty thing to do, but it's a blasphemous thing to do. We hunt down the roots of equality, and we find they go down very, very deep. They go down to the very nature of God. And that's a much better basis on which to build a passion for equality. The irony is when people sometimes dismiss the Bible or dismiss Christianity in the name of equality. We don't want any of this Christianity around here because it doesn't help us with our equality. You think, no, I'd say it's the other way around. I'd say if you get rid of the God of the Bible, you don't have a reason for equality. So that was the point we were kind of trying to aim for and help people to consider and reflect. Oops.
Brilliant. I think for me that it's dealing with, there isn't that one of Jesus' teachings where as much has been given to you, much will be asked of you, and you'll have to give account for what you've been given to the. And so I think if you've been blessed with an ability, God's going to hold you to an account with how you've used your ability and the gifting that he's given you, as in with the talents, where he asked them, what have you done with the talents that I gave you? And when they've invested in it and turned the 5 into 10 talents, he honors them and gives them more, which is quite amazing. I think that leads to my next question. So people who've been given an ability or a talent or a gift to do something, how do they walk in a way that honors the gifted nature or the giftedness of what they have, that it's been given to them, and not like true humility? Not walking. You could have the bad response would be getting really cocky and proud with what you've been given, or the another bad response would be, oh no, I don't want to acknowledge this because this is too good a thing, and it's not me, it's Jesus. It's not that good, but it's good. That kind of false humility. What would like a truly humble approach be to being gifted?
Yeah, that's right. So sometimes you hear that kind of story in church circles where you'd say to someone, you did that really well. Well done. Thank you so much for the thing you did. And the person will say, no, that wasn't me, it was Jesus. Jesus did that.
It's not that good, mate.
And that's right. That's the answer you have to give. Is that, no, he would have done it a lot better than you. But where the person's coming from is a kind of, I guess, a concern to avoid pride, to avoid conceit and arrogance. And, maybe that's a good thing, but it's perhaps possible to fall off this horse either side. You could make the mistake of being obsessed about how gifted you are. You could make the equivalent mistake of being obsessed about how ungifted you are. Both of them are to be obsessed about how you are. Both of them are self-obsession, and actually. The posture that we're called to is worship, which means to really have our minds fixed on the giver and to be turning things back to gratitude, turning things back to fruitful service of him and for others. Ultimately, it's a kind of self-forgetfulness. So, C.S. Lewis famously says, humility is not to think poorly of myself and to think lowly of myself and to think bad thoughts about myself. Humility is to not think about myself very much at all, to not particularly to not take myself seriously, or so seriously, I should say. There is a correct taking of ourselves in hand and knowing, being aware of ourselves is really important. But becoming so self-aware, so self-obsessive that we're trying to be humble. I've got to be humble. I've got to be humble. I've got to be humble. It's nearly always counterproductive. It doesn't create humility. It can even create pride because we're really obsessing about ourselves.
One of the interesting gifts that you come across where these sort of feelings comes into play is probably the gift of leadership.
Yeah.
And people stepping up and wanting to take on more responsibility or being ambitious.
Yeah.
Could almost be seen as it's a bit cocky. It's a bit why are you putting your head above everybody else when you should be lowly and submit and serve and do things in the corner where nobody notices you and that sort of thing. But there are some people who really come alive when they get to lead people and when they get to inspire people and work with people.
Yes.
We've been doing Strength Finders at Emmanuel, the course developed by Gallup, and one of the strengths is command. So it's people who have that strength are very good at stepping up and taking command of a situation and instructing people and making stuff happen. How do you view the whole gift of leadership?
Yeah.
And gift, the talent of leadership?
Yeah, it's named as a biblical gift, isn't it? In Romans 12, the gift of leadership. And if you have this gift, then lead diligently. Don't hide the gift. Use it. That's what the Bible commands us to do. And actually, there are plenty of places in Scripture where the clear point of some of the stories and the narratives that comes through is that people fail because they didn't exercise the gift of leadership that they had. They didn't lead, and that can be down to cowardice, or it can be down to like false modesty. And I think that's a classic thing that you're talking about. We do live in an age where we perhaps in the name of wanting to democratize things, keep things equal, avoid any kind of dictatorial situation, we might decry the idea of the leader and pull down the leader. They say that if you put a load of crabs in a bucket, you probably heard this before, if you put a whole load of crabs in a bucket and one of them tries to escape, it might actually get to the very top of the rim of the bucket, but the other crabs will always pull it back down again. They'll always pull down the one that's just about to escape. And it's like, no, this is the guy that if this crab escapes, it will show you all the way out of being cooked in a restaurant. If you want to escape, let this guy lead the way. But no, we mustn't have a leader. We mustn't. Who does he think he is? And I guess that's the kind of syndrome that we can struggle from in humanity. Like, we mustn't let someone get too exalted, so we pull them down. Whereas it may be that, no, letting the person flourish in their gift will be best for all of us.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to leadership, we perhaps mistake. Jesus told us really clearly in several explicit ways. At times he said it, and the way he did it was to teach that to be great is to be the one who serves. And so he teaches on servant leadership. That's how it is. He says, don't lord it over one another like the Gentiles do. No, just to lead, you must serve. The greatest among you is a servant. So he espouses servant leadership, and the way he led was by serving. But that's the key thing. We actually, if you have a gift of leadership, see it as an opportunity to serve. Actually serve by leading rather than lead by serving, which is what I think we sometimes do. We're a bit kind of nervous of leadership. We think it makes you feel uncomfortable and awkward about yourself. So you say, right, I won't lead then, I'll just serve. And what we normally think we mean by things like that is do things that look explicitly like servanthood. So, I clean out the bins or I set out the chairs as a way of saying, oh no, I'm not a leader, I'm a servant. Now, by all means, everyone should clean out the bins, everyone should set out the chairs, for sure. We should all serve, but don't do that to assuage your conscience. Don't do that to say, well, I really am a servant. Look how servant-hearted I am. Look, I'm doing these menial tasks just to show how much of a servant I am. No. The reality is, if you lead properly, it will cost you. Anyone who's really led anything will have to say, yeah, that was service. That was hard. That was costly. It cost me some honor, some reputation. It cost me some friends. It cost me some popularity. It cost me some peace and some comfort. Maybe it cost me a lot of money, but whatever. If you really lead, it will cost. And Jesus says, serve one another. And so what do we do? Well, we actually serve the church, or we serve anything best. If we have a gift of leadership, we serve it by leading. We use the gift to serve others with. Jesus wasn't ashamed to be the leader, but he used his leadership gift to serve other people. The classic example is in John chapter 13, where it says that about Jesus, knowing that all things had been given him by the Father, and that he'd come from the Father, and that he was going to the Father. You think that's a big list of leadership credentials. He's the Son of God, he's Lord of the universe, all things are given to him. And then it says he took a towel, took a basin, and washed his disciples' feet. So it's like he doesn't say, I wouldn't want to presume to be the leader. No, I'm just the same as everybody else here. I'm not more gifted. I'm not more talented. I'm not really a leader. No, he knows he is. He steps up. Yeah, I am the leader, but he uses his leadership gift actually for the blessing and benefit of other people.
So you could summarize this point by saying, don't just lead by serving, serve by leading.
Yes. Yohaan Philip.
You heard that here first.
Yeah.
Don't say that 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, although I got it from someone else. So it's let's not. If we're going to play the plagiarism game, then I win.
So it wasn't me. I think one of the things I really do appreciate about you, I know this is not the Joel Vogue appreciation.
Well, I think
sure.
I'd like to change it to that. So let's keep going with this.
is when you lead, and when we are exercising leadership in a situation, I do notice that does come either in the moment or through a long conversation of you saying, but Jesus is our leader, and you're leading on his behalf. So you're always pointing, we're listening to his leading and we're listening to his calling, which is what we've been doing over these 2 weeks of prayer and fasting, just spending time with God, with our leader.
Sure.
And I genuinely like how you keep pointing that back. You don't draw the attention to yourself, but in the same way, you don't deflect and say, I don't have a decision. Let's just pray and wait for this thing to resolve or for some clarity to emerge. But you give us vision, and yet you seem to always do it in the context of saying, but he is our ultimate leader. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, and it is a test. The test seems to come more when as you lead, that if you lead well in anything, what you're going to do by accident almost is see other people come to lead with their gifts, and they start to flourish around you, and then you have to be able to live with that and live with the implications of that, and that's sometimes the bigger test.
I have noticed some contexts where they say, oh no, we don't have any leadership in this situation or in this organization. We no, leadership is a bad thing. We don't have leadership. But it takes an extraordinary level of leadership to make that happen, and to not allow other people to emerge as leadership. Yeah. So even by saying we are not having any leaders, you're leading in that decision-making process.
Totally, yeah.
Do you have any questions for us, Megan?
We've got 5 minutes left, so if you do have any questions, please send them over. But I think we have some from the floor. So
we do.
Yeah.
In the parable, it's definitely God that gave different levels of talents. So the 5, 2, and a 1. It wasn't a result of the fall. It was a God thing. If you've got 2 talents, how do you, when looking at somebody who's got 5, in terms of jealousy? But it's not just like a problem with them, but even just how do you protect yourself thinking God favours them more than you? In terms of like, does God love them more than he loves me then? Because God's given them more to them than he has to me. So I know you touched upon jealousy on Sunday, but I think it's more like, you've chosen this, you've chosen to give me less. Like, why is that? How, even if you're feeling that, how can you protect your heart or just navigate that well?
I think the ultimate thing, it would seem to me, is it's going to the disquiet and discontent and jealousy that's created by that comes from an inadequate joy, because it's the person that's not living in the satisfaction of of God's particular care for them, particular love for them. And I guess certainly that's an easy answer in the sense that it's the correct answer. And I think the process of getting to the place of feeling sufficient joy to overcome jealousy and pride can be a battle. But I think there's no other battle so noble. It's the most wonderful battle, and to say I'm deliberately going to turn my attention to Christ. I'm going to deliberately get my soul fed here at this table, as it were, because there's no better way. I don't deny that that's a discipline and sometimes a painful one, but ultimately it's got to be rewarding. I think you see that in Scripture. You see it in the way that Jesus helps people to get their attention back on Him. So I guess one example, when people tend to plead their own sacrifices, Jesus is quick to say, "You guys don't lose out." So like when Peter does the thing of, "We've left everything to follow you." Jesus' response is, listen, guys, no one who leaves everything to follow me will fail to receive 100-fold in this life and the following. You are not losers. You are not victims. You are abundantly provided for. And I think that comes through in so many ways that you realize God is determined to see to it that we're satisfied in Him ultimately. And I've seen that happen, I guess, in different ways with the people that I've observed. I've had the privilege of seeing a whole lot of leaders in the organisation that I'm in, leading in, hand over responsibility to mostly younger generation of leaders who were probably not yet at the same maturity level, and all kinds of reasons why they could have easily been very negative about the whole process and bitter, but there was just an incredible genuine humility on display from them. I think of one or two particular moments where I saw it on display where you could tell these guys are not getting their soul fed by their job. They love their job, they love serving, they genuinely love every minute, but ultimately they know that they received their affirmation from the God who called them. And they put that, and so they're happy to hand over, let others increase and them decrease. John the Baptist talks this way in John's Gospel: he must increase, I must decrease. But then in the same paragraph, he's saying, I'm the friend of the bridegroom. So it's all tied up with, I'm so excited about him. It's all about the one who's feeding your soul. I guess that's the thing. It comes back to worship so much, doesn't it? Yeah.
I think you're more than a 2-talent person though, Simon. I think you've got a bit more. Probably like 3.5.
You could name many, many more talented people than me. So
Yeah, me too, but just...
We haven't got long left, so we've got a question from Instagram. I'm not even going to try and say this Instagram name, but it's a very long one. But the question is, how can you lead by the Spirit but your own mind?
So both. By your own,
how can you lead by the Spirit but your own mind?
Yeah. I would say that you may need to step back a bit from what could be a bit of a false division if you're thinking that the two things don't coexist well. God is the one who gave you a mind. The Holy Spirit is the author of wisdom. He's involved in you having the sort of mind that can think things through carefully. I think the danger is when our mind becomes exalted to the point where we resist the will of God and we're proud. And so I think that's what it means in Proverbs, lean not on your own understanding, but in your ways acknowledge Him. That doesn't mean don't trust common sense and don't be reasonable and don't be rational and wise. It means don't use your wisdom as a reason to refuse God's superior wisdom. And so there's a bit of a tension sometimes that we need to walk, but I think anyone who has a humble attitude towards God and what God said about decision making and priorities will generally be okay. Keep a humble, prayerful attitude and then make decisions carefully and trust that God will guide you and intervene if ever you're going in the wrong direction, and speak clearly and give scripture advice that's sound, that will help you back from making false decisions. But don't be frightened of the wisdom that God has given you.
Brilliant. George, a man behind Facebook Live or Instagram Live, had a question. Do you want to quickly ask your question, George?
You talked about the Venn diagram of things I think I'm good at, things other people say I'm good at, and aiming for the middle. What would you say to people who have something they're really passionate about but are realising no one else thinks I'm good at that, it's just me?
What would I say to that person? It would depend. If I know the person, I'd have some thoughts on it. I might have some of my own personal observations on the journey they're on, because the reality is, in a lot of cases, what's happening there is they're having a moment of truth. It's like, oh, wow, I'm now having to adjust my understanding of what I'm called to do. And that's happened to all of us, and it must happen. I think that these processes are really healthy for everybody to go through the process in life. We realise what I thought I was good at, I might be partly wrong about this. And just if you've never had to stop and consider that, there's probably some reality checks needed. If you've never had to stop and think, I thought I was good at that, I'm not as good as I thought I was. You know, that's not the end of the world. That's part of the journey of you finding out what you are called to. So don't freak out. Let it guide you in the right direction. Now, you may in the end be right and everyone else wrong, but the way to do that, surely, the way to handle that tension is not to climb back into an arrogant place of sort of pushing other people beyond their conscience and manipulating them and making them feel guilty for telling you things that you don't want to hear, but prayerfully, patiently waiting for opportunities to see if you are right, and it may be you have to go through a process of that. But whatever it is, I think keeping a humble attitude is crucial in it, absolutely crucial. Trusting generally in the wisdom that God provides us with brothers and sisters. If they love us and they love Jesus, you're in pretty safe hands, and they will want to help you find out what you're called to do.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Joel. We've run out of time. Thanks so much for tuning in to Live Lunch, episode 8. Have a great week ahead.
Amen. See you soon.